Nothing like a forced hiatus to give you some time to ruminate on the year that just passed and start planning ahead for the year to come. We're taking our third crack at the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Yeah, we lost to Pumas and we lost to Inter Miami. Will year number 3 be any different? And those are the questions we're most likely going to try to answer today. Welcome back, everyone, to episode number 34 of The American Dream. I am Mr. Cellophane. Thank you very much for hanging with us. The last couple of days have not been very happy for me. Sorry I've not been able to record any new episodes. We've knocked things a little off kilter. The numbering is going to absolutely kill me. But we are here at the end of the 2028 season with our year in review as we prepare for the following season. Dante Campbell was deemed our signing of the season. He made 7 starts for us, 26 total appearances, scored 5 goals as a backup fullback, maybe seeing a little bit more time with us in the year to come. A little more on that later. Sandro Ferrari played pretty decently, made 7 starts, 8 total appearances when he finally came back from injury. 2 goals, 1 assist, and a 7.29 rating. Nanway did a nice job on loan from Atletico Ottawa. Do we renew that? I'm not 100% sure. 15 appearances overall, 8 of them starts. 5 assists, not too bad, and a 7.03 rating. Rodolfo Novaes, only 4 appearances for us in the latter part of the season. He added 1 assist. We're going to hope to see a little bit more from him. And Lukas Dasovic on the back end, 13 appearances, 6 of them starts. He was okay. On the way out, James Cameron ended up having a pretty good year, even though he didn't want to continue with us. 2 goals for Rhode Island in 15 total appearances, most of them off of the bench. Mo Farsi, he didn't play a ton for Unity FC, so I think it was a pretty good move out when all was said and done. He was unhappy being here. He didn't like being our captain. So, you know what? Bye. Cameron Habibullah, we sold for $175,000. He did make 6 starts for Calvary FC, added 1 assist for them. I think ultimately that was a good money move for us. He wasn't seeing the playing time with us. And then the other guys who got rid of really had no bearing on any of the clubs that received them. Just in case you forgot, because it has been a while, we were deemed the champions of the Canadian Premier League. We won the playoffs for the first time in 3 chances at that nut. We finally broke through. 16 wins, 5 draws, 7 losses on the regular season. 53 points. We ended up beating Pacific FC in second place by a total of 6 points. The board is very happy with that. In the Canadian Championship, we got knocked out in the semifinals by CF Montreal of MLS. We put on a decent performance for a little while, but ultimately they proved to be the stronger club in a 6-3 defeat. And in the Champions Cup, we already talked about that. Knocked out in the preliminary round by Inter Miami. We were able to beat them 1-0 on the road in Miami, but they took care of business when they came to Willoughby Community Park. 6-2. Ultimately, they won 7-2 on aggregate. That is a performance we are most definitely hoping to improve upon next year. Our biggest win was 5-0 against the Halifax Wanderers in the middle of June, so that was mid-season with goals from Elanabi, Schiavone, Didier, Ryazantsev, and Ferrari scoring a penalty on his debut. Match to remember came early on in the season. It was a 3-0 victory over Pacific FC, and Matteo Schiavone providing the perfect finish to an excellent team move by scoring a low drive from 21 yards out for the goal of the season on August 20th on the road at Halifax. As far as the finances go, no real change to our reputation around the world. Still a 2-star national reputation. We definitely need to get that up. As far as shirt sales go, we sold less than 500. But George Marks was the number 1 shirt seller. Castillo, Kane, Isaiah Johnston, and Sargis picking up the number 5 spot. Good for them. How we lined up, this was our best 11. According to whatever decides this, Marks in goal, Sargis Abatna and El Anabe as our back 3, Castillo and Pertuz on the wing backs, Schiavone and Johnston in the midfield behind Noah Verhoeven, in support of Yevon Ryazantsev and Alain Didier. I guess Sargis really being the only surprise in that one. The fans player of the season for the 3rd year in a row was Isaiah Johnston. The young player of the season this year, though, did go to Matteo Schiavone. Dante Campbell, as we talked about, the signing of the season. Top goal scorer was Alain Didier with 13. Juan David Pertuz with 9 assists led the way. 5 Man of the Match awards for Didier. Highest average rating went to Matteo Schiavone. Also, the most passes completed per 90 minutes went to Schiavone as well. A number of records broken throughout the season. Most overall goals by a player, 13 for Alain Didier. Most in the match, Alain Didier with 2. I'm sure that tied a record somewhere. Either that or this particular statistical category is broken, because I think we had the same conversation last year. But didn't somebody score a hat trick? Most goals by a player in the league match, also Alain Didier with 2. Most assists in the season by Pertuz with 9. Pretty sure that that's not the actual record. Most league appearances by a player, 128 for Mohamedou Kane in his career. We touched on that when it happened in the season. Also, most league goals by a player, Alain Didier with 35. James Gaffard became our oldest player, but he also scored our fastest goal at 47 seconds, as well as becoming our oldest goal scorer at 33 years, 258 days. By the way, we did also win Coach of the Year. George Marks was the Golden Glove winner for the CPL. Matteo Schiavone, the Premier League Players Player of the Year, and the Premier League Player of the Year as well. An honor that had been won the last 2 seasons by Isaiah Johnston. So that has been an award that, at least for the last 3 years, has gone to the Vancouver midfield. I think one of our challenges moving forward is going to be a financial one, because as you see, we gained 2,400 social media followers. We're at 29,000 now, which I guess is pretty good. 1,050 season ticket holders, but nobody on the waiting list. So I'm not sure if we're going to see an increase in season tickets, even though we were champions and we've won the regular season for the last 3 years. As far as the expectations, they do want us to continue to work towards winning the Canadian Premier League. We do have 1 year remaining on our current contract. I think the plan is going to be to see how things go this year in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, because with the limitations of our reputation, with the limitations of our wage bill, because we do have the salary cap, and just the fact that we can't really bring in a ton of foreign talent because of the number of foreigners that we can have on our club, competing on a continental level may continue to be difficult, or we may actually hit kind of a ceiling on that, which would be unfortunate, because the whole point of this adventure is to win the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Something that I would love to be able to do with Vancouver FC. Now watch us do it in this coming year. It's probably not going to happen, but wouldn't that be an absolute hoot? If we cannot achieve further success with this team, and it has nothing to do with the team themselves, with the setup of the league and the structure that we have to work under for our regular season, and as far as building our squad, we may need to look elsewhere once our contract is up in order to achieve our American dream. Pulling up the squad one last time before they go off on their end of season break. Now, those of you who follow me on Twitch know that I tend to keep a slightly larger squad than normal. I like finding players who may be a good value down the road to either sell on, or maybe aren't quite ready for the first team but have a ton of potential that I'd kind of just like to hang around and eventually move into the main squad. I don't have the advantage of doing that here because, as you remember, we can only register 23 players. So on the plus side, that has forced me to focus on finding players that are going to fill more immediate needs. Yes, they may grow for the future, but they have to do a job now. Aside from the senior squad, I only have a U17 squad, so I can't find a 19-year-old that I want to look at for the future and just stash him somewhere while he develops. No, he's either got to be part of the squad or he doesn't, because then I'll be upset that I'm not fulfilling a promise in playing him at all. The problem is that I have to be very judicious with who I do and do not sign as a reserve. Our depth is still a tiny bit of an issue, although I think last season was better than the one before. We definitely found use for all of our players, the exception of whom is Paris G, who we did try to sell for a bag of Tim Hortons donuts, but even Timbits people weren't willing to spend that on him, so we just have to wait for him to retire, which is, by the way, going to be happening in about a week. But we have 7 players, now that I count, who will be out of contract after this year. Paris G is one of them. He is obviously not coming back. There are decisions we do have to make. Noah Veerhoven. He is now 29 years old. He has still been doing an absolute fantastic job for us. He made 15 starts, 24 total appearances, 6 goals, 4 assists, outperforming his XG, still getting a rating of 7.0 or above. Still a very serviceable player. Will he be our starting number 10 next year? Most likely not. Who is going to slide into that position? We've had Ryan Beecher play there a little bit. He is also getting a little bit up there in age. He's 27. He's foreign. He's from the United States. He has not yet achieved Canadian nationality. I'm not sure if he even wants to. If he did, he will be out of contract. He's making $775 a week. Is that money we should be spending elsewhere? Decent player. We got him in the draft. Only made 16 appearances, only 5 of those starts, a pair of assists. He really didn't contribute in the way that we would have liked him to. Paul Amadume, we've already decided he's not going to be re-signed. However, Sammy El Anabi was a massive part of our backline this year, starting in 21 of our 28 regular season matches with a 7.0 rating, scored a goal and an assist. He was very serviceable, but at $1,400 a week, is he worth attempting to re-sign? He's inconsistent. He doesn't enjoy big matches. Can we do better? Nonway is on that list. He only made 13 appearances for us, did add 4 assists in the regular season, 1 in the Canadian Championship. Played very well when he was out there. Is he the permanent move we are looking for? 20 years old, so I like the fact that he is young and still has potential remaining. The problem is we had him in on loan from Atletico Ottawa. Will they let him go? And will they let him go for less than his value, which, as you can see there, is $1 million. And frankly, we ain't got it. If we were to do that, it would be all in service of replacing Juan Castillo, who is making a ton of money, to be fair, $1,400 a week. His contract is expiring. He is a foreign player. He's 26 years old. He doesn't have any room left to grow, but he is a very solid player. 2 goals, 3 assists in the regular season. The rating could have been a little bit better. I mean, he's playing as our left wing back. Had some issues, even though with the 13 stamina, 14 natural fitness, I felt like he was getting tired. We do ask a lot of that role. Do we need to find somebody who's maybe a little bit better suited to play the type of system that we are? The big question is, does Castillo, who did serve as our captain last year, even want to re-sign? And as of right now, the answer to that is a resounding hell no. Which really does leave us at a dearth for a left back for next year. Dante Campbell, we did throw him over there a couple of times, but it is not by any stretch of the imagination a natural position for him. So that's probably going to be our number 1 target. That and a new starting number 10. Novaes can potentially play up there. It's not really his position. Do we train him there? We already kind of have been. We have thrown him into that position a little bit over this year. The 19-year-old did make 3 appearances as our attacking midfielder and did decently well, better than he did at his natural position. To be fair, is he the answer there? Will we just be rotating him and Noah Abotna? Will Noah Abotna even re-sign with us? These are the questions we are trying to answer. Before we figure out where we're going with the senior team, we did have our youth intake. Our top player is Tommaso Ianni, a Canadian Italian dual national, 15 years old, stands at 5'11", 143 pounds. He plays that defensive midfield role. We are obviously going to probably shift him up. He's a little short to be a center back. We don't really play a DM, so we're going to be training him as a regular midfielder once he signs on. Decent marking ability. His tackling is pretty good as well. Positioning is probably his strong suit. Good decision making, determination. I like all of that. Fairly agile as well. Not the greatest personality in the world. He's unambitious, which seems to just be the way. Also coming in as a possibility to be a backup attacking midfielder is 16-year-old Robert Colson. He's Canadian, which is great, 5'7". Determination, just a little bit on the low side, however. Hopefully we'll be able to bring that up after a little bit. His first touch is fantastic. He's got some good technique and flair as well. We just need him to work on everything else. And our third potential midfield option from the intake, 16-year-old Jay Bramley, yet another unambitious young gentleman. Now, something I do want to touch on is, and something you don't get to see on camera, is we have had a lot of youth players get poached by teams, specifically the Vancouver Whitecaps. Could it be that our best players are getting poached? And does that mean that we need to improve our youth setup in some way, shape, or form? That would be great, except financially, we are not in the greatest shape. We are $1.3 million in the hole and losing money on a monthly basis. And there's really no way to turn that around with the low attendance and our lack of consistency and success on the Continental level. All things that bring me back to this may be our final season in Canada. Well, even if we wanted any of the youth players that we're bringing in from our intake to have an impact next season, what were we thinking? Robert Colson signed a deal which starts on September the 25th of next year. Jay Bramley's deal begins in the middle of June, so he will be available in time for the final, 6-7 matches of the season. And Tommaso Ianni not joining until the middle of next December. We did, though, finally get some good news on the restaffing front. Now, we do have a backup left back that we have in the pipeline that will show you when he actually completes the transfer over to Vancouver FC, which isn't going to be until the end of January. But Juan Castillo has agreed to a new 2-year contract to remain with the club, which means our captain is not leaving, and we were able to get him in on just a little bit less than he was making before. $1,200 a week for the next 2 years, which is a savings of about $200. Every little bit helps. Now, we did have to agree to a $600,000 minimum fee release clause. We were trying to bump that up. He didn't like that. He wanted a ton more money. If we had agreed to do that, we were looking for $1 million. But this is kind of not a double-edged sword, but it could work out for us either way. If he stays with us, then we have less money that we're committing to the left wing back position. We have a player that we know and are comfortable with and will lead the team both on and off the pitch. However, if he does go, we do get to recoup a little bit of the money that we are losing all over the place by getting in $600,000. So win-win. Luckily for us, we were also able to agree to a new contract. It's not signed, sealed, and delivered yet, but we do have a new deal in place with Noah Verhoeven. The 29-year-old was making $700 a week. We had to give him a slight pay bump. He's making $725. He's going to be in the fold for another 2 years. He has a little bit of value to him, even right now with his contract expiring. It could be a player that we somehow find a way to cash in on, although cashing in on players has not really been our forte in this journey, specifically at this club. It has been very, very difficult to sell a player to another club, but we do still try our best, which is actually something we are looking to do with Stuart Murray. We brought in Andrea Magni, who we think will be a nice, serviceable backup, also a U21 player, which Murray no longer is. Not that we don't like Murray, but he is not going to be unseating George Marks anytime soon, and he has some value to him. Now, will anybody take the young goalkeeper off of our hands? He's only 21 years old. He's got decent aerial reach. His reflexes are outstanding, and at 6'1", he is a very sizable body to put in between the sticks. We would love to keep him. It's okay if he stays. If he does choose to move on, however, that could also potentially benefit us greatly. That being said, there is absolutely zero interest in him from around the footballing world. I pray that that changes once the year ticks over and we are in January and the transfer windows are open, but I'm not holding my breath. And yes, somehow, even by losing so much money and having such a negative bank balance, we somehow made a taxable profit of $595,000. So $150,000 tax bill is coming our way, which is going to just put us even more in the red. However, we did pick up a new main kit sponsor, so that deal is going to net us another $75,000 a year. So half of what we just got hit with, so I guess the damage, well, it ain't going to be so bad. And just because this looked like a serious man, and we liked his experience, and he's a little bit better than the guy we had, Rick Titus is our brand new director of football. So the 1st of January is upon us. The preseason is getting ready to begin in a little bit. We open our season in mid-April on the road at Atletico Ottawa. I believe that's exactly where we finished off the year before, during the regular season, that is, if I'm not mistaken. Valor FC is going to be our first home match just a couple of days later. Then the first BC Derby of the year on the 22nd of April on the road at Pacific FC, and our first 5 fixtures get rounded out by a home match against Forge and a road trip to Calvary FC. 5 matches in a little under 3 weeks to kick things off to begin the year. The rest of the BC Derbies on May 23rd. That's the first one at home. We are back on the road against Pacific on July the 8th before returning home for the final BC Derby of the regular season. We all know that there's a chance that another one may crop up either in the playoffs or the Canadian Championship. That's going to happen on September the 12th. Our season ends October 6th as we host York United. And you know, before I started hitting record, I was thinking about, obviously, the next episode, which is going to be our first round matchup in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. And I thought, you know, wouldn't it just be the way if this is how things turned out? Once again, we are going to be facing Inter Miami in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Oh, by the way, Inter Miami, they are the current holders of the competition. They won it all last year after running us out of our own building 6-2 in the second leg to beat us 6-3 on aggregate. So will we get revenge, or will this just be poetic justice for our final season in Vancouver? And if for some reason we are able to get through the preliminary round into the round of 16, we're going to be taking on either Mexican side Santos Laguna or Platense out of Honduras. I think we actually have an easier time in the round of 16. I mean, seriously, there are 22 teams that have been drawn into the preliminary round of the CONCACAF Champions Cup. I have 2 questions. 1, why did we have to get drawn against the exact same team that knocked us out last year? And 2, why are last year's champions forced to play in the preliminary round? These are all very valid questions that hopefully we will get an answer to. I think that we have gone on long enough for my sickness-riddled body to handle. We are going to start the season coming up in tomorrow's episode, taking on Inter Miami. At least the first leg is at home. I mean, I say that in anticipation of actually being able to hold serve at home, remembering that last time we took on Inter Miami, we beat them on the road 1-0. It was at home that they absolutely wiped the floor with us. If you liked that, make sure you hit the thumbs up on the video. Subscribe if you are new or if you have not already. And come back tomorrow as we embark on what may be our final turn in the CONCACAF Champions Cup in charge of Vancouver FC. How things turn out tomorrow will really determine what our future is at this particular club. I hope to see you then. Until tomorrow, bye-bye.